In today's video, I'm going to share how I made $100,000 in my coaching business and how long it took me. Now, the reason that I want to share this is not because I'm over here like, ooh, look at me, I made $100,000. The reason that I want to share this is because over the years, as I was building my coaching business, I really looked up to those that were open and transparent and vulnerable when it came to how much money they were making. I want to be able to share how I made $100,000 in my coaching business, and especially how long it took me, because I did not make $100,000 in my first year in business like I have seen so many others do, which is amazing, but that just wasn't my journey. So I want to be able to share this and share my journey so that if you're looking to get started building a coaching business, or maybe you're already running a coaching business, you've been in business for a year or two or three, I just want to be able to share my journey and my experience in building my coaching business and building it up to making over $100,000. I also want to preface this with saying that this is $100,000 in revenue. I want to try to paint as clear of a picture as to how I made $100,000 in my coaching business. I'm going to break it down each year in my business, how much money I made in revenue and how much money I spent on expenses, how much money I spent on investments, and what was my total net profit each year in my business that ultimately led me to making over $100,000 in my coaching business. Now, another thing that I will note is before I started my coaching business, I was also working as a virtual assistant and designing websites while I was getting started coaching and building my coaching business. Now, I'm not going to include the money that I made from my work as a virtual assistant and when I was designing websites in my first year and two in my coaching business, but I do want to just make note of that. I will share in times the money that I made and how it kind of related to the money that I was making in my coaching business, but I'm not going to include that in the totals for how much revenue I made each year and what was my total net profit. I'm going to stick to just the money that I made from my coaching and in my coaching business. And before we get into it, if you enjoy this video, comment below your thoughts, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Now let's get into it. I started my coaching business in April 2019, and I feel like as soon as I found coaching, I knew that this was what I wanted to do. So I very quickly decided to join a group coaching program and launch my coaching business. And within 4 days of launching my coaching business, I signed my first client, which was really exciting. Now, I will share that when I first started my coaching business, I had little to no savings, and I put that first investment in a group coaching program that was around $6,000. I put that on my personal credit card. Now, I am not recommending that you do this, but for me, it allowed me to start my coaching business. Now, I knew that I would be putting it on my personal credit card and obviously be paying it off, but I knew that I wanted to get started, and I wanted to get started right then and there. And so that's what I did. Now, the reason that I'm sharing that is not that I'm recommending that, but I also just want to be very open and transparent in what allowed me to get started in my coaching business and what allowed me to continue to make money in my coaching business and make these investments. So that first investment in the group coaching program, I did put on my personal credit card, but it allowed me to get started and start my coaching business and start working with clients, which was obviously what I wanted to do. So I made that investment. I joined a group coaching program. I launched my coaching business, signed my first paying client within 4 days. And then I went 3 months before signing my next client. So I think I pretty much finished with that first client and then signed my next client. At this time, I was also doing some virtual assistant work and designing websites. So I was kind of balancing both of those at the same time. I also made the decision, again, not recommending this. This is probably one of the things that I wish I would have done differently in building my coaching business. But I started my coaching business in April 2019, which was just a couple of months after I moved here to Australia. So If you don't know my story, I met my partner Dan in Bali in 2018. And a couple of months after we met, I moved here to Australia. So I moved here to Australia at the end of 2018. And then in April 2019 is when I first started my coaching business. And looking back, I wish I would have got a part-time or even a full-time job when I first got here to Australia for a couple of different reasons. One of the reasons being that I feel like it would have allowed me to feel more a part of being here in Australia, allowed me to get out and meet people, but also the financial aspect of having a job and having a job while you're building a business. I made the decision at the time that I wanted to focus all of my time and energy into building my coaching business. So I decided not to pursue getting a part-time or even a full-time job. I was still doing virtual assistant work and, just designing some websites, but it wasn't enough to really support me in building my coaching business in the way that I wanted to. And, that is one of the kind of regrets that I have in building my coaching business was from the beginning, I put myself in this place where I was constantly feeling pressured to sign clients and make money. It was nobody else but me, but I really put that pressure on myself to, again, sign clients and make money. And, looking back, I'm very proud of all of the things that I was able to do in my coaching business. But I also feel like if I would have got a part-time job or even a full-time job while I was building my coaching business and didn't from the beginning put that pressure on myself to sign clients and make money, I think I would have had a very different experience in my coaching business. But again, although I might kind of regret that, at the same time I don't, because I know that that was just the decision that I made at the time, and that's just what I decided to do, and it is what it is. I can't obviously go back in time. So I just want to share that because, again, I'm just wanting to be as open and transparent in my journey in building my coaching business and how I made $100,000. When I first started my coaching business, I started off offering 3 months of one-on-one coaching for $2,497, and I offered a payment plan. I signed 2 clients my first year and made $5,398. So like I said, I invested in a group coaching program. I also bought a couple of other courses, and towards the end of the year, I invested in a coaching certification through Yes Supply for my total investments my first year in my business was $7,447.50. And my expenses for the year was $2,513.47. I didn't make any money in my first year in my coaching business. Looking back, there were a lot of expenses my first year in my coaching business that I didn't really need. Found myself looking to other coaches and other, people building their businesses online and seeing what they were using and thinking that I needed those things to build my business. And I didn't. I think when you're first getting started with anything, you don't need all the bells and whistles. And I thought I did, and I didn't. And I spent a lot of money on those subscriptions and having those recurring subscriptions when I wasn't actually using them and I didn't actually need them. There was a lot of money that I spent in my first year in my business that I could have saved, but again, lesson learned. I wish I would have had a little bit more of a plan when I first started my coaching business and, as I was building my coaching business, and especially around some of the investments that I was making, putting that first investment in a group coaching program on my personal credit card and not really having a plan on how I was going to pay that off. I wish I would have had a little bit more of a plan surrounding that, but again, it is what it is. That's what I chose to do. And again, I'm just wanting to share this because I'm wanting to just be as open and transparent with my journey in building my coaching business. This brings me to my total net income for my first year in my coaching business of negative $4,562.97. And as I mentioned, I was also working as a virtual assistant and designing websites, and that made me $7,292.62 that first year in my coaching business. So if I would have factored that in to the total revenue of my business, my total net income would have been $2,729.65. Now, with sharing all of these numbers for that first year in my coaching business, I wasn't, or we weren't, Dan and I, paying a lot in rent. And I will say, and I'm very grateful that Dan definitely did financially support me in a lot of ways when I was first starting my coaching business. So I definitely cannot not mention that, because he did support me in a lot of ways, and especially financially when I was first getting started in my coaching business. So I do just want to mention that. My first year in my coaching business, 2019, my total revenue was $5,398. Total expenses were $2,513.47. My total investments were $7,447.50 for a total net income of negative $4,562.97. Now, as I shared, I signed my first paying client within 4 days of launching my coaching business, and I signed my second client just a couple of months after that. So my first year in my coaching business, I worked with and I signed 2 clients. But after signing that second client, my first year in my coaching business, I went almost 9 or 10 months without signing a client. And not because I had stopped showing up online or closed my business or anything like that. I was still showing up and I was still working on my business, and I still wanted to sign clients. So it was really hard for me to go 10 months, almost 10 months without signing a client. But looking back, I remember really being in that mindset of, can I do this? Can I really make this happen? And a little bit, as I already shared, I was in that scarcity mindset of feeling like I needed to be signing clients and making money, and, put me in that little bit of a place of feeling attached to and like graspy, right? Being in that graspy energy. Still showing up, I was still working on my business, but looking back, was in that mindset of, can I do this? Can I really make this happen? But I kept going. So if you haven't signed a client in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, something that worked for me in that time was I never doubted that I wasn't going to sign another client. I knew that it wasn't a matter of if, it was just a matter of when. And eventually I did. I ended up signing in my second year in my business. It was around April. So after a full year of signing my first client, ended up signing 7 clients in 4 months and making almost $18,000. My first year in my business, I didn't even make $6,000, and in 4 months' time, I made almost $18,000, which was mind-blowing, but it really cemented for me this concept and this idea of, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. My advice for you is, if you are in that place where you are struggling to sign clients, and maybe it's been a couple of weeks or a couple of months, keep going. You will get to where you want to be. It might just take a little bit longer, and that's okay. My second year in my business, I continued offering 3 months of one-on-one coaching for $2,497 while still offering a 3-month payment plan, until I decided to take my 3-month one-on-one program to a 6-month one-on-one program. And with that, I increased my price to $6,000. In my second year in my coaching business, I made $21,315.26. In the beginning of the year, I joined another group coaching program, different from the first group coaching program that I joined. And I actually rejoined this coaching program later in that year. The coach that I was working with, when I said that I wanted to expand my 3-month one-on-one program to a 6-month program, the coach that I was working with at the time offered that I charge $6,000 for 6-month one-on-one coaching. At the time, this sounded great, but unknowingly, I was not ready to charge $6,000 for 6 months of one-on-one coaching. I wish I would have just kept with what was working at that time. I signed 7 clients within 4 months into my 3-month one-on-one coaching program. And I don't know what led me to decide to change something when things were working, but that's what I did. I felt like I wanted to work with clients for a little bit longer. My clients were creating the results that they wanted in those 3 months that we were working together, but I wanted to help them sustain those results. So that was one of the reasons why I decided to take my 3-month coaching program to a 6-month coaching program. On the advice of the coach that I was working with, I decided to offer 6 months of one-on-one coaching for $6,000. And I really struggled to believe that I could charge $6,000. If you don't believe in your price, it's going to make it a lot harder for other people to believe in your price, and make it a lot harder for other people to want to pay you that price. Looking back, I feel like it was a lot of wasted time, and I was wasting so much time on self-coaching myself, on asking to be coached around my price, when I knew pretty early on, when I first decided to expand my 3-month coaching program to 6 months, I very quickly knew that I wasn't comfortable charging $6,000, but I kept it. And I, again, went on the advice of other coaches and people that I was listening to, and decided to keep it, even though I knew deep down that I wanted to change it. So the lesson that I learned was that you have to decide for yourself everything. And especially when it comes to in your business, you have to decide what you want to do and what's best for you. And to know that, everybody else is going to have their own thoughts and opinions and give you their advice. But at the end of the day, you have to decide what's best for you, and nobody is going to know what that is. And it doesn't matter if it's different than what anybody else has to say or what their thoughts or opinions or advice is. It's your life, it's your business, and you ultimately have to do what's best for you. My expenses in my second year in my business were $5,531.12. Now, my biggest expense my second year in my business was I got a shared office space with a couple other female entrepreneurs in this area. I think one of the things that's not often talked about is when you are building your own business and working for yourself, it is very isolating. And especially where we live on 27 acres. It is a little bit isolating in itself where we live. And when I got this offer to join this shared office space, I was so excited to have a space where I could go, I could get out of the house, leave the property, and also to just surround myself with other female entrepreneurs. Everybody had their own businesses. Not all these other women were building coaching businesses, but I really wanted to surround myself with other people who were doing, something similar to me. Although this was a big expense at the time, I'm really grateful that I had this space. Now, in my second year in my business, I also continued paying for the investments that I made in the coaching certification with Yes Supply. And as I mentioned, I joined another group coaching program at the beginning of the year, and I also rejoined that coaching program at the end of the year, and in total invested $18,729.11 for a total net income of negative $2,944.97. My second year in my coaching business, I also designed one website and wrote one blog post for a total revenue of $1,692.79, which, if factored in, would have given me a total net income of negative $1,252.18, which again, I'm not factoring into the total revenue and total of my total net income. My biggest lesson in my second year in my coaching business was I overinvested. I remember hearing repeatedly that you should be reinvesting all of the money that you make in your business back into your business up until you hit $100,000 in your business, which is what I did. I invested a lot of money I made in my business, and sometimes money I didn't have, in hopes to make it back and make it back quickly. And the one thing that I wish I would have known earlier in building my business, and as I was reading and listening to other entrepreneurs and coaches, is that everything that you hear people say, including myself, is their opinion. Now that I've made over $100,000 in my coaching business, I've learned that you don't. You do not have to invest all of the money that you make in your business back into your business up until you hit $100,000. You can, but you don't have to. Even though this coach didn't say it at the time, she could have said, in my opinion, you should be investing all of the money that you make in your business back into your business up until you make $100,000. Now, obviously, not everyone, including myself, is going to preface everything that they say with saying, in my opinion, but now that you know, you can put those 3 words, in my opinion, in front of anything that you hear someone say, whether this is business or anything else. Everything that other people say, including myself, is their opinion. All right, so back to my second year in my coaching business. My second year in my coaching business, 2020, my total revenue was $21,315.26. My total expenses were $5,531.12. My total investments were $18,729.11 for a total net income of negative $2,944.97. All time, my total revenue, including my first year and my second year in my business, my total revenue was $26,713.26. My total expenses were $8,044.59. My total investments were $26,176.61 for a total net income of negative $7,507.94. At the beginning of my third year in my coaching business, 2021, I got a part-time job. Now in August, I finally changed my price for my 6-month one-on-one coaching program from $6,000 to $5,000. I also decided to take a little bit of a step back from my business. In the beginning of the year, I was still working with clients, but I was feeling a little bit burnt out. I was adjusting to working a part-time job while also working with clients, while also continuing to build my business. The beginning of the year was definitely a roller coaster ride. In the second half of the year, I started signing, this is when I decided to change my price from $6,000 to $5,000. I felt really good about offering 6 months of one-on-one coaching for $5,000. I felt comfortable and confident in my price. And so that is when I started signing more clients more consistently, and ultimately ended the year feeling pretty good about where I was in my business, which was definitely not the case for where I started the year. My third year in my coaching business, I made $36,130. I was still working from the shared office space for the first couple of months of the year, as well as paying for many of the same subscriptions that I was at the time using to run my business. So my total expenses for the year were $5,119.27. My biggest lesson I learned before getting into how much money I invested in my third year in my coaching business was, as cliche as it is to trust yourself. I was having a really hard time signing clients at the end of my second year into my third year in my coaching business, while I was offering 6 months of one-on-one coaching for $6,000. And my lesson was to trust yourself and to trust myself. I knew very quickly that I was having a hard time signing clients into my 6-month one-on-one program for $6,000. And looking back, I wish I would have trusted myself more and trusted my gut and changed my price to one that I felt comfortable and confident charging. But instead, I spent a lot of time self-coaching myself and asking for coaching on a price which was just a waste of time. Trust yourself. If there is something that you want to do or a change that you want to make or whatever it is, trust yourself and know that you will always know best. And at the end of the day, you get to decide. It's your business, it's your life, you get to decide. My third year in my business, I invested $22,383.10. So I finished paying off the second round of the group coaching program that I joined the year before. I invested in a $2,000 program. I worked with a hypnotherapist, invested in a $444 course bundle on money mindset, and I signed up to start working with a working one-on-one with a business coach, and then reinvested in working with her for another 6 months. My third year in my coaching business, 2021, my total revenue was $36,130. My total expenses were $5,119.27. My total investments were $22,383.10 for a total net income of $8,627.63. All time now, from my first year, my second year, and my third year in my coaching business, all time, my total revenue was $62,843.26. My total expenses were $13,163.86. My total investments were $48,559.71 for a total net income of $1,119.69. In my fourth year in my coaching business, I continued offering 6 months of one-on-one coaching for $5,000 while continuing to offer a payment plan. My fourth year in my business, 2022, was also the year that I was finally able to go home to see my family and friends after 2 years of not being able to see them due to the pandemic. And with that, I decided to take 2 full weeks off of my business. So no coaching calls, no Voxer support. I didn't even show up on social media. I just really wanted to be present with my family and friends after not seeing them for 2 years. The last 3 weeks of my trip, I went back home for 5 weeks. My first 2 weeks, I decided to take off. And then in my last 3 weeks, I continued coaching and supporting my clients. Weeks after my trip home, I flew to Hawaii to meet up with Dan and his family, and we were in Hawaii for 2 weeks. I saw a couple of my clients while I was in Hawaii, but again, decided to take some time off to fully be present there with Dan and his family and just enjoy being in Hawaii, enjoy being, on a holiday, on vacation after being locked down here in Australia during the pandemic for 2 years. Dan and I also traveled back home to the States for a month, and I again decided to take 2 full weeks off. To me, there is nothing more important than being present with the ones I love most. And in my fourth year in my business, I was finally able to really experience what I was wanting to create and have, and that was having the freedom to work from anywhere in the world, which unknowingly did come with its challenges. At the time, I had each one of my clients scheduled each week on a certain day and at a specific time. Earlier on in my business, I gave my clients the option to book in a time at my available time, so they could book in a time for our coaching call each week. And then later into my coaching business, I moved into scheduling my clients at a certain time each day and each week, so that I could kind of have a little bit more of a knowing of what my schedule was going to look like each week. My fourth year in my coaching business, I went back home to the States twice after not being able to go home for 2 years. I spent 5 weeks there, and then with Dan, we went back home for a month. So both of these trips, I had to figure out how I was going to continue working with my clients who were scheduled on a certain day and time each week. I had to figure out, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out moving from my time zone here in Australia back home to the States, and with all of my clients all around the world, what time zones they were in, at what time they were booked each day and each week. And I spent a lot of time trying to work out my schedule for when I went back home and being in a different time zone and still continuing to have my coaching calls with my clients. It was, I think at this time that I started to really realize that maybe this wasn't the best way of working with clients, knowing that I wanted to have that freedom to work from anywhere in the world and travel often. That way of working with clients wasn't going to really work for me, but that was what I was doing at the time. So that was definitely one of the challenges that I faced in wanting to be able to work from anywhere in the world and travel often. Having clients scheduled on a certain day at a certain time each week didn't give me that freedom and flexibility to travel spontaneously and travel often. It took a lot of work to try to figure out, okay, I see this client at this time on this day. Okay, when I move to this new time zone, what's that going to look like? Confirming with them and, making changes as needed. That was definitely one of the challenges that I faced in my 4th year in my coaching business as I traveled back home to the States twice. At the end of 2022, I also launched a course, Becoming a Coach. I released the first module on January 2nd of last year, 2023, and the students inside got access to 9 modules and 3 bonus videos over the course of 12 weeks. They also had access to a private group chat and Voxer, and the course was $1,000, and I had 2 students sign up the first round. My 4th year in my coaching business, I made $34,213. My expenses were $3,128.58, and I invested $10,312.40 in continuing to work with a coach that I began working with in the year before, in 2021. I also invested in another $444 bundle and a course on money mindset. My 4th year in my coaching business, 2022, my total revenue was $34,213. My total expenses were $4,439.20. My total investments were $10,199.26 for a total net income of $19,574.54. All time total revenue was $97,056.26. My total expenses were $17,603.06. My total investments were $58,758.97 for a total net income of $20,694.23. Last year, 2023, definitely did not turn out like I thought it would. I finished working with 2 private one-on-one clients, and after the launch of my course, Becoming a Coach, and after it didn't turn out like I had hoped, is when I ultimately decided to take a break from my business. And even though I had decided to take a break from my business at that time, I still continued working with one private one-on-one client until we had our last session in July of last year, and when I eventually quit coaching. If you're curious to know why I decided to take a break from my business and eventually quit coaching, you can watch Why I Quit Coaching, which will be linked up in the description. Last year, 2023, which is still technically in my 4th year in my coaching business, because I started my coaching business in April 2019, this works out to be 4 years after that being in 2023. I know it gets a little bit confusing. Last year, 2023, my total revenue was $6,310.89. My total expenses were $3,393.67. My total investments were $339.42 for a total net income of $2,577.80. So to give you the final numbers on how I made $100,000 in my coaching business, all time my total revenue was $103,367.15. My total expenses were $20,996.73. Total investments were $59,098.39 for a total net income of $23,272.03. There were many lessons I learned in starting and building my coaching business and in generating a total revenue of over $100,000, more than I can fit in a video. But one of my biggest lessons was slow growth isn't bad. It also doesn't mean that anything has gone wrong or that you're missing anything. Instead of focusing on where you want to be and comparing that to where you are now, focus on where you started and where you are now. I've taken this concept from reading the book, The Gap and the Gain, and if you haven't already read this, do yourself a favor and order it right now. I have been praising this book since I read it and sharing it with just about anybody that I can. And if you are looking to start a coaching business or start a business, or whether you are already building a business, this book is such a game changer. It will change your mindset on how you view where you are now in your journey in building your business. It was definitely one of the books that had the most impact on me in building my coaching business. So if you have not read the book, The Gap and the Gain, definitely do yourself a favor. Order it right now. I'll link it up in the description. I obviously did not make $100,000 in my first year in my business. It took me 4 years to make $100,000 in my coaching business. But in the end, I still got there. Looking back, it didn't really matter that it took me 4 years to make $100,000 in my coaching business, because in the end, I still got there. If you haven't, or you don't make $100,000 in your first year in your coaching business, and that is your goal, keep going. It might not happen in your first year, it might not happen in your second year, but eventually, if you take that concept and idea that I shared earlier, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And even though I've since quit coaching, I'm still super proud of myself. I'm super proud of myself for taking the leap in starting my coaching business, for putting myself out there, and for making $100,000. More importantly, I am so grateful for all of the people that I was able to connect with, for all of the clients that I was able to work with that trusted me in helping them get to where they wanted to be, not only in their business, but in their life. I am forever grateful for all that I was able to create and do and experience in starting and building my coaching business. I know it can be easy to want to compare our journey and our results and our business to somebody else, but there really is no need to compare yourself, your results, your business to anyone else, because it's their journey. And this has been my journey. So I hope you enjoyed getting to hear how I made $100,000 in my coaching business and how long it took me. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. And if you have any questions at all about my experience in starting and building my coaching business and in making $100,000, just drop it here in the comments or send me a DM over on Instagram at Lauren Tamayo, and I'd be happy to share anything about my experience or answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.